Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's been a lot going on with Arizona basketball's roster this offseason, and with the potential departure of Arizona's beloved Carter Bryant, who are some players in the portal that Arizona potentially should target in the late stages of the transfer portal to elevate their roster to a Final Four contender cemented? Damon and I have 5 players each that we think Arizona should be targeting in the transfer portal if Carter Bryant should depart. We're going to talk about all that and a lot more here on the AZ Wildcats podcast in just 30 seconds. Leave a like. Don't you go anywhere.
Welcome on in to the AZ Wildcats podcast, live from Studio K, presented by Circle K in beautiful downtown Phoenix. I'm Damon Fairall. He is Kevin Thomas. We are the AZ Wildcats podcast, as I had previously stated. And Kevin, do we have a jam-packed show for you folks today? Make sure if you guys are here early, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We are fired up on a Friday, and nothing like a Friday, Kevin. Nothing like a little bit of, for some people, it's the early start to the weekend. I feel like over here at PHNX, Fridays are, it's just like any other day. We treat it like any other day. We pick our briefcase up, we walk into the office, open it up, get to work, right?
No, totally. I will say maybe the vibes in this office today are a little bit,
There's Friday vibes.
Yeah, there's definitely some Friday vibes going on here in the office. It's a little zany, a little kooky, a little crazy here in the PHNX headquarters too. But yeah, good Fridays all around. I love a good Friday, Damon, especially when we're off on the weekend. It's always a good time. I hope that everybody here in the chat is excited for their weekend. I know for some people that are up here in the Valley, even some people down in Tucson are traveling up for the weekend concert tonight, Damon. I know that my girlfriend's going. I think Eric Ruby might be going there, not to put him on blast like that. But yeah, you might be able to spot Eric Ruby at the weekend concert tonight. Who knows?
You're going to treat that like doxing?
To an extent. I mean,
he's going to a concert
when you're as famous as Eric Ruby,
a stadium that holds 50,000 people. You'll probably see Eric Ruby tonight if you're going to the weekend concert.
I heard he's going to be on stage, is what I'm saying. But no, yeah, I'm excited for the weekend. Looking forward to everything. UFC 315 is this weekend. I know this is not a UFC podcast, but I will be at Gila River Resorts and Casinos, Wild Horse Pass location. Today's Friday. Tomorrow night for UFC 315. So if you are in that area, pop out. I'll be at the sports book watching some UFC, watching some, probably some hockey playoffs, probably some NBA playoffs. So pop out. It should be a good time. But those are my weekend plans, Damon. What do you got planned for this weekend?
I am starting my little trek to SoCal this weekend, so I will be out of town next week. Kevin will be solo doloing it again. And
surprise!
Damon, Mr. Vacations Fairall, just continues to make a name for himself in this business. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at, Kevin. And I'm pumped up to be going on another vacation. Maybe get my feet in the sand a little bit. Ocean waves in the background. Doesn't get any better than that.
And Lord knows you haven't done that in so long.
It's been like
you're dying.
Like 2 weeks. Dude.
Are you okay?
I don't know, dude. I don't know. And with that, also I believe my Justin Spears streak will be ending again.
Womp womp.
Tear away the paper. We're back to 0 shows with Damon and Justin Spears on the same show. And I believe our record is 2. Right now, so
yep, strong 2.
Special stuff going on in our neck of the woods here, Kevin. But yeah, fired up to be here. Fired up to talk some Arizona basketball, some Arizona softball, as well as maybe a little bit of Tedero McMillan T-Mac updates.
Arizona baseball. Got a lot going on. Senior weekend for Arizona baseball. We could go off the top with some Arizona baseball here, but I just wanted to make sure that they were included in the list of things on this jam-packed show. Because honestly, I think during the offseason, we all get into the habit of just waiting for basketball, waiting for football. But there's a lot going on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Michael here in the chat. My college tour continues. I will be in Lawrence this weekend. I'll go talk to Zeke Mayo for you guys. And Michael, save that, bookmark it, pin it, put it on a Post-it for later in the show, because maybe we might actually have you go talk to Zeke Mayo on our behalf, because maybe he's on one of our lists, maybe both of our lists for the portal pickups that we want for Arizona. But maybe he's not. Maybe he's not. Who knows, Damon? Who knows?
He's on the thumbnail. That's for sure.
He is on the thummy. Tony wants to know, did you borrow Shane's RV?
Shane's RV.
What is this? What context here? Oh, for the trip, Damon.
For the
trip to SoCal.
Oh. You mean the Did anybody else see that? I mean,
you know what I think happened there, David? I think Shane from Europe is watching the podcast, heard his RV might be getting taken away from him, and decided to hack in and try to shut you down before you could be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I will text Shane and see if I can get his RV for this road trip. Because clearly Shane ain't having none of that, because he just tried to hack in here and get you shut down.
Yeah, that was pretty odd. That totally threw me off my game.
I was like, am I about to go to a one shot right now and just talk about Damon's RV life? But yeah, no, that's crazy.
The Winnebago, I assume that Shane lived on for the better part of a year. I assume that's what Tony is talking about. No, Shane doesn't let anybody have his Winnebago. Shane's Winnebago is locked up in a secret location, and he'll pull it out of the woodworks when he's ready to go on another cross country America football tour. But yeah, I'll be trekking it with the old parents. And it's just classic road trip. So it'll be a good time. But yeah, leaving my guy Kevin once again, and then Kevin will repay the favor later this summer at some point. But
I will, because I'll be going to hot, humid ass Georgia in the middle of June, end of June. And shout out to Michael for bringing that to my attention, how sweaty and humid it is there. Because I am a sweater.
Did you check the weather?
Not yet. I'm kind of scared, to be honest with you.
So here's where I'll give you a little bit of saving grace here, Kevin. When I went to Atlanta in July, maybe August of 2 summers ago, it was unseasonably so, but it was very temperate. I mean, it was in the 70s. The humidity was like 70-80%. It wasn't like it was sticky, but it wasn't like, oh my God, I've never, I don't want to go outside. This is horrible type of environment. So I don't know. Maybe you'll get the good side of the old deep South weather train, but who knows? Who knows, Kevin?
I'm excited regardless. I'll say that. Yeah. I'm excited regardless, because sometimes you just sometimes you gotta sweat some stuff out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to enjoy the process, even if you sweat it out, just like a good bet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Sometimes the best bets are the ones you sweat out the hardest. And I think something that Arizona fans en masse across the board are, sweating out right now is the Carter Bryant saga. And we have a lot more sweating to do in relation to that, because the NBA draft is not for quite a while still yet. The deadline to withdraw from said draft is 19 days away. No. Yeah, 19 days away. May 28th is the deadline to withdraw from the NBA draft if your name is on that list. So Jaden Bradley, Carter Bryant. So we're all sweating that out. But in the meantime, though, Damon, what can you do to address the sweatiness? How can you try to supplant, use some deodorant? Who are the players in the transfer portal that can be the deodorant for us as fans? You know what I mean? That's what we're here to provide today. Give you the deodorant that you need at home. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And by that, I mean we have 5 players each that Damon and I have went through the portal, picked and plucked out, that we think Arizona should target, would need to target, to really take the roster to the next level. And I think before we do this, Damon, we should talk a little bit about the expectations of the current roster and what we believe the floor and the ceiling is. Because if we're talking about how these transfer players can raise the ceiling of Arizona or raise the floor of Arizona, we should first define what those two things are. And I guess I'll put you on the spot first and ask you what your expectations are for this current roster before we go adding players to the roster.
Yeah, I think as currently constituted, and when I look at this team and kind of just the way that my hypothetical starting lineup in my own head would work, I think to myself that it's a fairly similar caliber roster as last year. I don't think that this is a team that is necessarily going to, go in and win the Big 12. I don't think that, I feel that maybe there's a a slight edge to like a Houston who brings in a number 1 recruiting class and was in the national championship game. Kansas, you expect to be better than they were last season. Number 1 overall recruit in Darren Peterson. Like, I don't know if this is the team that's going to bring home a Big 12 title, but I think it's close. I think it's extremely close, just as last year's roster was. And if you told me Carter Bryant was coming back, I would tell you that I think we'd be the favorite. I think that Arizona would be I would put them number 1 on my list to, take home a Big 12 title. So it begs the question, if Carter Bryant, if we're just going to assume that he's not going to come back, does Arizona need to bring in an extra piece, right? Does Arizona need to bring in that guy that's going to put them over the top and bring this roster from the level that it's currently at, which is a very, very good team that I think has Final Four aspirations still and will play a physical brand of basketball, is going to do what Tommy Lloyd wants them to do. Like, I don't think that this team by any stretch of the imagination currently is not a great team. I think it's really, really good. I just don't know if it's that upper echelon elite of the elite teams that you're going to find. And it just popped in my head right now, like, based off of what happened last year in college basketball, Kevin, I feel like you kind of have to be one of those elite teams all season long if you want to be a national title contender, because we saw 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. It was it was all 1s, 2s, 3s, all up across, the entire Elite Eight. Like, I feel like it's there's less and less parity right now in college basketball because of NIL and whatnot. So you have to be a team that is, at the top throughout the entirety of the season if you want to get to where you want to get to in March.
That's a good point, Damon. It really is. And I think with the transfer portal, NIL, rev share, whatever you want to call it, era, I think you are seeing, and I don't want to be hyperbolic because I think that and I don't want to blame them necessarily because we understand the job. I think some pundits, though, this past March Madness kind of fell into the trap of, did NIL kill the Cinderella? Did rev share kill the low seed national champion? And I don't think that it did, but I do think, to your point, that in the era of revenue sharing, it does behoove you to be one of the best teams all season, be battle tested, so that you're not more likely to get blown up by a St. Peter's and a Doug Eater. You know what I mean? Because you have a roster that you've paid for and put together that should. It's one of those things where when you're recruiting players, not paying them allegedly, the expectations are different for the roster, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, they're kids, they're still developing, they're going to be around for a couple years. It's not do or die every single year, in my opinion. But I think in this new era, right, you have a lot more teams that are constructing it as if it was a professional roster and expecting a win now kind of scenario. So you're right. I think we're going to see a lot more national champions that have dominated the regular season because that's what their roster dictates. That's the level of talent that they have. Look at Duke, right? Like, Duke last season was, regardless of the conference they were in, I think they would have had a tougher time in other conferences, but that talent still the cream would have rose to the top. You know what I mean? And I think that if you're Arizona, and the reason, it's actually in the description, the reason we say Arizona is a really good team, but not a great team, is because maybe you are just missing, specifically like that Carter Bryant piece, that NBA top 10, we know he's a top 10 NBA guy, in addition to your other guys who are going to be in the NBA, but you don't quite know where because they haven't played a game yet. You know what I mean? So I think, to your point, Arizona, if they're going to contend for a national championship, you do have to be one of the better teams all season. And last season, we talked about it at length. That non-conference, I mean, we talked about it in specific relation to the rankings.
Yes.
But that non-conference not only kept you smothered in the rankings for a long time, but it also mentally, the team was playing catch-up, I think, all year. Right? To try to get to the point that they thought they could get to, as opposed to being at that point early in the season, maintaining and overcoming adversity, learning from the adversity, and then still being the most battle-tested team. So I do think that was a good observation by you.
And when Arizona lost those 3 out of 4 games to Kansas State, Houston, and then they beat Baylor, and then they lost to BYU, they completely dropped out of the rankings in late February, Kevin. Like, we were at a spot, and we all know that this team was one of the, probably 15 best teams in the country rather than even 25, right? But, this was a situation where the non-conference, the poor non-conference was so bad that you have one misstep during the regular season in the Big 12, and all of a sudden you're dropping out of the top 25 completely. But I do think that it just, the caliber of last year's roster was just one step below what it needed to be in order to reach that ultimate goal, which is, winning the national championship, right? And I'm sure Tommy knew that, and I'm sure that bringing in these blue chipper high school recruits that we currently have in this class and that Arizona has in this class is like that's considered to be like we're bringing in that upper echelon talent that's going to help get Arizona to that goal, right? But at the same time, you do need some experience. You do need complementary pieces around players like that, right? Because you can't just bank on the unknown somewhat of a freshman, despite how confident we are in Koa Peat and Brayden Burries in particular. But yeah, I think it's just you're looking at what supplemental pieces can Arizona bring to this roster that could really just kind of push it over the top, right? And there's a couple names out there. There's actually surprisingly more names than I thought after doing research on this topic, Kevin. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but like I knew that there was guys like Darrion Williams who are currently in the draft process and deciding whether or not they want to come back for an extra year of eligibility. But at the same time, there's some more on the margins players as well that I think could provide to this roster what potentially Arizona could use.
And before we dive deeper into that, I wanted to add to your point about how kind of like what Arizona can do to crack into that Final Four contention a little bit. And I was thinking to myself about what is Arizona's roster currently missing? You and I have discussed this on this show prior, but I think when you, in a more broad sense, look at Arizona's roster, before, again, like you said, we don't know the exact skill set of Koa Peat and Brayden Burries at the college level because we have yet to see it. They could both step on campus and be two of the best freshmen in the country, and they could lead this team to the promised land on their own, right? We don't know that yet. It's hard to predict that. It's hard to rely on that. And so when you look at Arizona's roster next season, what is missing most, I think, is that high-end number one option, right? I think, and from a number one option, I don't mean like touches, minutes. I mean like who's the bucket getter? Yeah. If you need a bucket, who's getting it? If you look at who was in the Final Four last season, Damon, each one of those teams, every casual knew, okay, Auburn needs a bucket. They're either going to Janai Broom or Chad Baker-Mazara. Yeah. Right? Duke needs a bucket. Cooper Flagg. Right? Houston needs a bucket. They're kind of the end.
And if you're Duke, you lose every game that you give Cooper Flagg.
Yes. And if you're Houston, you're just a kind of an anomaly because of the way Kellen Sampson coaches and the way that all that is. But even they had, Darrion Williams and Chance and that was Texas Tech. But you get my point though. Yeah. Florida, you had Walter Clayton. Right? So, like, you look at the teams that made it far in March Madness, they all had that number one option. Even to a lesser extent, Arizona with Caleb Love. So, who is next season's number one bucket getter? Yet to be seen, and maybe that could be the guy you're looking at in the portal, and that's kind of the lens I was looking at this at. Who's a guy that could really help the scoring ceiling of this team, but without detracting from the rest of the success? Because ADO was that guy last year who could really raise the ceiling of the offense, but by the same token, he dropped the floor of the defense so low, it made it hard to let him cook on offense.
Yeah, totally. I'm 100% with that line of thinking. Is like, I think you need that extra scoring punch, right? A guy who wants the ball in their hands, and can get you a bucket or at least get you a good shot. It's not always going to go in, but a guy that can create his own shot and get to his spot when he needs that one possession with everything on the line. So yeah, I mean, I think that we're on the same page with that one. And yeah, we both compiled a list of our top 5 players that, we think could really, somewhat, do wonders for this roster, if you will, Kevin. So, without further ado, do you want to start us off or do you want me to start us off?
Yeah, you go ahead and start us off, Damon.
Cool. Yeah. I'm going to start us off with someone that if you've watched this show, you might be a little bit familiar with. Because his name is Dr. Bradley, and he's a Hall of Namer, goddammit. Dr. Bradley was on our Hall of Names. There was a point last season where Dr. Bradley was averaging 36 points per game, I believe, Kevin. Very, very early in the season, that is. But he played at Arkansas Pine Bluff. I understand, not the greatest level of competition in the world. I'm looking at a list right now where he was rated the number one player in the SWAC conference. SWAC. The most efficient player, I believe. And his averages for last season were 19.5, 9.5, 4.5. So he was a 20-point per game scorer, almost 10 boards per game at 6'8", 210. He's from Los Angeles. He's a West Coast guy. He started his career at New Mexico State, which is, somewhat close to Arizona and Las Cruces. It's not too far away. And he shot 56% from the field last year, Kevin. So he was pretty damn efficient from that wing spot. He shot 60% from the field at New Mexico State. But from last season to this season, he upticked his, and actually I believe he took a year off in between. I don't know if that was a medical thing or not. I might have to look a little bit more into that, but he upticked his 3-point percentage, and he didn't take very many attempts at all, but he upticked his 3-point percentage from 10% to 38.5%. So maybe that's something that he sees that he can work on, that he can improve upon his game. Right. And then maybe he looks at a team like Arizona and a coach like Tommy Lloyd, where, yeah, if I want to get to the next level, if I want to get to the NBA, I'm going to have to add that 3-point shot to my game. Can Tommy Lloyd breathe that out of him, right? He clearly has the chops for it. He's not a very good free throw shooter, I will say, though. So maybe the shooting touch is just not all that much there. But he was really, really good last season for Arkansas Pine Bluff. And 1 block, 2.8 steals per game too, Kevin. He's averaging almost 4 stonks a game. And again, I know the level of competition is not great, but I think this is a player that I think you could potentially get behind as a, somewhat of he's maybe a little bit more of a wild card. That's why he's number 5 on my list. But I just think that there is high potential with a guy like this.
I love the idea. I love when, things fall into place very karmically, Damon. I've explained this to you before.
And that too.
With me choosing the University of Arizona from where I'm from, and then Courtney Ramey eventually transfers, and I'm thinking that's kind of crazy cool that I watched him in high school, and then all of a sudden he's playing for my college team. And then Caleb Love follows him up, and I'm thinking, what type of star-crossed situation do we have here? You and I just appreciate Dr. Bradley's name, throw him into the Hall of Names. Maybe karmically that threw something out there, and now Dr. Bradley is destined for the University of Arizona because of us.
I got to say, here's another thing, that he's taken 2 gap years. So I don't really know what's going on there. Again, that's something I would definitely have to look more into.
Yeah, that could be anything.
It could be. And so he actually ended up at Cal State Fullerton right out of college. Then didn't play the 21-22 season, then went to New Mexico State, then didn't play the 23-24 season, then went to Arkansas Pine Bluff.
Okay.
So yeah, he's a little bit older of a prospect as well. He actually went to Khalil Tate's high school.
Bang.
Something interesting there. So yeah, I mean, I that would just be a guy that I'd be interested in, and also kind of just felt like legally obligated I had to put him on the list because of
Hall of Namers.
He's Hall of Namer.
Got to keep it in the family, right? And if you're a Hall of Namer, you are in the family. You know what I mean? Let's go to number 5 on my list, as Damon's number 5 is Dr. Bradley. My number 5 maybe should be actually my number 4, but I think the age thing here kind of plays into it for me.
Okay.
Tyon Grant-Foster is my number 5 pick. I think he falls at number 5 on my list as opposed to being number 3 or 4, simply because I think I don't know if Arizona's necessarily what he's looking for. You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like you step up from GCU, you're kind of looking for that big last bag. Any major program you can get it at, and that doesn't really sound like Arizona. Mm-hmm. Now, the number 2 player on my list might also be looking for a crazy bag, but I'll get to him later. I think Tyon Grant-Foster, I'm talking about scoring. He can do it in bunches. He's an incredibly prolific scorer, albeit for GCU. He has that size. Yes, Micey Mike, he still does have eligibility somehow, I believe.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, honestly, the eligibility questions nowadays, just my brain can't compute who has eligibility because of why, and who was there for a COVID year and all that stuff.
Here's what's even crazier about it, Kevin. He played 2 years of JUCO ball. Then he went to Kansas out of JUCO. Then after Kansas, he played at DePaul, but he only played 1 game at DePaul. So I think he was able to get a red shirt out of that. I also believe that there was a ruling, right, that JUCO players, that doesn't count towards their eligibility. So I think that factor is playing in here. So they're saying that his 3 years of college that he's played are Kansas and then in the 2 years at GCU, and giving him a 4th extra year because those JUCO years don't count, because that DePaul year doesn't count. But yes, he's been in college for 6 years already.
Sheesh. And that's why we got Damon around, folks. That was an incredibly intuitive way to break that down. Also, I think the return to the Big 12 or at least a return to a Big 12 team. I know maybe Kansas wasn't in the conference. Was Kansas in the conference at the time? Yeah, right, yeah. Anyway, point is, Tyon Grant-Foster, I think, would be a very nice fit for this team. His size, his length, his athleticism, his ability to score the ball at that like wing combo, huge guard, jumbo size guard position.
Yeah,
I think is incredible. He's a guy that averaged 15 points, 6 boards, and 2 assists last season for GCU. I think he's a player that can be incredibly potent in the role that Arizona would ask him to play. Not exactly playing the huge usage role that he was being asked to do at GCU. This would be much more of a Carter Bryant kind of role, where it's like, hey, man, I know you can shoot. I know you can score. I know you can handle the ball. He's a much better ball handler, in my opinion, than Carter Bryant. So I feel like Tyon Grant-Foster would be the kind of one of the perfect, ideal players to add into that 3 slot, bang, day one, a ton of experience, a ton of scoring. And I think, keep him in the state would be a great pickup. So Tyon Grant-Foster is my 5.
absolutely love it. Just doing some quick research here. The last rumors regarding Tyon Grant-Foster were that Syracuse was sniffing around him. So I do understand what you're saying though regarding Tyon Grant-Foster in his in relation to is Arizona what he's looking for in a role, right? Because at Arizona, I think he'd be kind of, and I don't want to say delegated because I don't think that that's the right word for it, but like I think he wouldn't be the offensive star. He would definitely need to pick up a little bit of the secondary playmaking chops, I think. Especially like if you want to give a Jaden Bradley a spell, or if Brayden Burries is maybe struggling with it against some of the better competition. He's not much of a spacer at all. He shot well from 3 2 years ago at GCU. He shot really poorly from 3 last year. But he is a good defender as well. So I like the fit for the roster. I'm not sure that he's the spacer that you would like ideally hope for in this piece that we're talking about, but I also just think that he's a really good basketball player, and he somewhat just raises the ceiling of this team with that alone, right? So I would absolutely love Tyon Grant-Foster on this team, and that's why he's my number 4, Kevin. Tyon Grant-Foster is it just leads straight into it. He's my number 4 player here on my list. As at Kevin's number 5, and yeah, I think that this is a player that just he's shown that he can play high level college basketball. He's played in multiple tournament games already. He has that tournament experience that I think that Arizona should be striving for, and also like I know we're joking about the age and stuff, but it's somewhat of an asset, no? Like the dude should be in the NBA.
In that role that he would be asked to play for Arizona, I think it's a huge plus. And to add to your point, you got very high usage impact freshmen coming in.
Yeah.
Like who better to learn from than a Tyon Grant-Foster, who has pretty much played at every level you can play at.
Yes. Certainly. That is that's all I got there on Tyon Grant-Foster. We can move into your number 4, Kevin.
We sure can. And my number 4, Damon Dog, is going to be, get ready for this name, maybe a potential future name Hall of Famer. Let me not mess this up. Liutauras Lelevicius. Liutauras Lelevicius from Oregon State. From Oregon State. He is honestly a very interesting player. He's Lithuanian, and I feel like he's a sophomore. He has youth. He still can develop into a player that you want him to be. I think that this is a guy, when you watch his tape, it kind of shocked me how smooth his game was. I think for a guy that averaged 9 points, 4 boards, and just an assist and a half last season, it doesn't really jump off the screen at you. But when you watch his game and you kind of imagine him in that role at Arizona of playing maybe the 3 and kind of just being the utility, like mix and match guy on offense, I kind of love it. He's a high percentage corner 3-point shooter. He has an incredibly smooth shooting stroke. Damon, after the show, I implore you to go watch this kid's highlights, because the amount of and 1 contested threes that he hits, I think I remember like 3 or 4 from the highlight video I watched. It was kind of insane. He's an incredibly aggressive finisher.
Lewis on him.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, must have had. He's an aggressive finisher with a great shot, and he has good length because he does stand at 6'7", and 198 pounds isn't the brawniest guy, but I think for kind of a jumbo guard kind of player that can also play the 3, Liutauras Lelevicius, I think might be the one for me, albeit from Oregon State. It would be a step up, but he is an efficient player on very low usage. I feel like if you give him a little bit more usage and the proper coaching, he could really be an Arizona Wildcat. And I think this is a little bit more superficial, and I would love your take on this, Damon.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm going through the transfer portal and I'm looking at pictures of guys, anybody can be an Arizona Wildcat. I'm not trying to be exclusive here. But what I am saying is when you look at, like we talked about it with Houston this year, right? Some programs have a look. You know what I mean? And when I look at Liutauras,
yeah,
he kind of looks like an Arizona Wildcat. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I don't know what I mean.
No,
I
rock with that.
Yeah, Zeke Mayo the same way. I could see him rocking the uniform. Yeah, I think Liutauras Lelevicius would be a very, very nice pickup from Kaunas, Lithuania. Wait, what did I say, Edgar? You said pause, Kev. I don't know what I said. I don't know. Can I resume now?
Sure.
All right, cool. All right,
play.
Cool. Play. But no, yeah, like I said, Liutauras Lelevicius is my number 4 pick for transfer portal player that would take Arizona from really good to great. Because I think he is that offensive multi-tool with the length that you could coach on defense. And you just hope he's not a turnstile like ADO was last season.
Certainly so. Let's move on here to my number 3. And he is this guy is what's going on?
Trevor said my couch started floating after you said that. Cool name. Liutauras Lelevicius. That was hella funny. All right, continue.
Some Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, So my next name here is, and I put him. I think this guy is a really, really, really good basketball player. I do kind of, if I was tier ranking my top 5, I think I'd put Doc pretty low, a lot lower than everybody else. Tyon Grant-Foster would kind of be in a tier of his own, and then these next 3 would all kind of be at the top in a hierarchy of their own, right? I do think that there's levels to the list that I have here, Kevin, and we're starting off with R.J. Luis Jr. from St. John's. So he is currently a player that is similar to Carter Bryant in the NBA draft combine process. He's put his name in there. He's also entered the portal. I believe he took some visits with some schools such as Miami was one of them. That's where he's from. I know that for a fact. So
welcome to Miami.
Miami, Florida, North Carolina State, Texas A&M. So Arizona not involved in that, but R.J. Luis Jr., a really, really good player.
Isn't it Lewis?
Is it?
I think it's Lewis.
I mean, he's Dominican.
No, yeah. I'm going based off of what I heard during March Madness commentary, which mileage may vary for the accuracy of that. But I have heard R.J. Lewis a lot. So it was more so me posing a question than correcting you.
Well, this is a fun game we like to play on here where
What's that name?
We look up we should do that. The player profile.
We should totally do that. What's that name?
On their website and see if they have a pronunciation of their own name.
But while you do that, I do want to talk about R.J. Lewis or Luis a little bit because Michael does bring up, you're willing to take on his personality, ? Max says he is the number 1 available transfer according to 24/7, and he is. I think
it's Luis, yeah.
Okay, it is Luis. Okay. But anyway, I think Luis is a player that is incredibly talented, and I think if he had handled the end of last season a little bit better, I think he is probably already in the NBA draft, and he's not in the portal, or he's already found a team. And like Michael says, IMO, there's a reason he has not been picked up. I think if Rick Pitino can't get you to understand sacrifice for victory. I love Tommy Lloyd to death. I would take a bullet for Tommy Lloyd, but you know what I mean? I do wonder, we were talking earlier about Tyon Grant-Foster, and I do wonder if R.J. Luis would be, I don't know.
Conflicting reports.
Yeah.
On the Luis Lewis situation.
We have conflicting reports.
We do.
Oh, God.
I was basing that off of a tweet from the St. John's SB Nation site where they said now would be a good time to PSA for everyone to know that RJ Luis's last name is pronounced Luis, not Lewis.
Okay.
And then someone sends in a pronunciation guide replying to it where it says Lewis, and then someone else replied, Daily Dose of Hoops, who's a college basketball writer, national college basketball writer. He said he's actually using the Americanized pronunciation. I thought the same at the start of the year, but the kind of people in the St. John Sports Info office confirmed that with RJ and his father corroborating, I thought he used the ethnic pronunciation too until it was clarified. So I believe it is Lewis.
Let's go. This is investigative Big J journalism out of Damon Dog over there.
That's why I have 2 degrees, brother.
Hell yeah,
Stuff like
brother.
this, man.
Hell yeah. But yeah, RJ Lewis, I think he's an incredible player. If Arizona was able to pick him up and if he was able to buy into what Tommy Lloyd was, selling him, I think that honestly it would be a great fit. But would he be willing to buy in? Would he be willing to be the kind of player that Tommy Lloyd wanted him to be? Because he wouldn't even be that for Rick Pitino at the end of the season. And we know how tight of a ship Rick Pitino runs. And I'm not saying Tommy Lloyd runs a loose ship, but I think you get my point. If the drill sergeant could get it out of him, I'm not sure that Tommy Lloyd will be able to get it out of him there as well. But RJ Lewis, again, if Arizona was able to pull it off, that is the kind of player that takes your roster from really good to they might be the national favorites. You know what I mean? If they pick up an RJ Lewis, that's crazy.
Edgar makes a great point. Talk about an upgrade, KJ Lewis to RJ Lewis. just doing what we need to do.
Yeah, I love that.
To Michael's point, there's a reason that he hasn't been picked up in his opinion. And I think that there could be something to that. I'm not saying that there's not. I think that more so the reason he hasn't been picked up is because he's in the draft process right now. And so he's kind of deciding what his future is going to be. I don't really have any expectation that he's going to be like struggling to find a spot once if he was to pull his name out. Like a team like Miami is going to take RJ Lewis.
Oh my God,
he's from Miami. They were horrible last season. Like they're rebuilding. They have a new coach. They're taking RJ Lewis 10 times out of 10. You got a team like like Florida who lost their entire roster, right? Another, he's from Florida, as I just said. Like I feel like the teams will pick up RJ Lewis. Will it be Arizona? That's another question. Tommy Lloyd is very clearly a culture fit guy, right? Clearly. It's very obvious to everybody who pays attention. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that maybe personality wise, he could be maybe not the best fit. Yeah. That's why he's number 3 on my list though. Right.
Bang.
That's because he's the number 1 player in the transfer portal, according to 24/7 right now. Number 3 on my own personal list, but you look at the stats from last year, 18 points per game, shot 44% from the field, 33.5% from 3. 7 rebounds a game, 2 assists, steal and a half a block. Like he's a really good college basketball player. And he fits that size mold and that ball handling ability mold that Arizona, like we keep talking about with this list that they need, right? A guy who's a scorer who wants the ball in his hands, who's about 6'5" to 6'8" in that range. And I think he checks all of those boxes. So if he came to Arizona, I'd be thrilled. I don't think he is coming to Arizona, but he's number 3 on my list.
And before I get to number 3 on my list, I want to remind everybody, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. We just hit 40K subscribers. Thanks to all you beautiful people at home, you beautiful Arizona Wildcat loving viewers at home. We appreciate each and every one of you for spending some time with us today, and we will continue this list, giving my number 3, who is going to be Desmond Claude. Got it right that time, chat, of USC. And Damon, I believe you're out of town. Some people make fun of me for how I say Desmond Claude because I was doing a solo show and I was a little flustered at the time, and I just couldn't for the life of me get Desmond Claude's name right. I kept calling him Desmond Cloud, Desmond Claude. It was a horror show, an absolute embarrassment to the pronunciation of the man's name.
Every single time there was a new pronunciation.
And I just hope I didn't ruin Tommy Lloyd's chances of bringing Desmond to Tucson. You know what I mean?
Big Des.
If Big DC is looking over like, well, am I really going to bring my 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game to a place that can't even pronounce my name? These are the podcasters we got? This is what we're doing? But no.
We're
number
sorry,
3,
Des.
Number 3, USC's Desmond Claude, who, like I said, averaged about 16, 5, and 3.5 last season. Very smooth shooter. Can also facilitate. Pretty underrated passer as well. He fits that mold of 6'6", 200 pounds, kind of can play a big 2 or a small 3 and still shoot the ball. I just like what I see from him from a, like I said, from a scoring standpoint. How can you help the offensive ceiling raise? I think that Desmond Claude is that guy. Spot up shooter, catch and shoot guy. Can also, if someone closes out on him, drive past their hip and facilitate for an assist, kick out. Like I think that he is. I have him 3rd on my list because I think he's a more complete player than Lelevicius, and I think that for that reason he ranks 3rd on my list over him. And I think that the fit would be so perfect. The fit would be perfect because he's not a guy that needs a lot of touches. He's not a guy that needs a lot of time on ball. In fact, one area where he does struggle, and I admit this is a reason maybe why you wouldn't look at him, is his ball handling and shot creation isn't the greatest, right? His ability to make his own shot is not at the elite or even really good level. Mm-hmm. But again, I'm not really necessarily in my opinion, when I'm looking at these players, ball handling is a plus. Right, because I think you got Brayden Burries, you got Jaden Bradley, you got Koa Peat. The ball is going to be in other people's hands all the time. I think you need a player who doesn't necessarily have that elite shot creation, but that catch and shoot. How are you in transition? How are you off the ball? How are you off a screen? I think Desmond Claude is all those things, and I think for that reason he comes in third on my list of players that could take Arizona from really good to great next season.
Yeah, looking at here that Desmond Claude is a guy that he's been looking at Texas A&M, looking at Florida, a lot of maybe more of those big money type of moves. And yeah, I mean he's a really good player. But yeah, his headshot scares the absolute hell out of me.
I'll say this without saying too much. Yeah, I'll say this without saying too much. If you Google him, I don't know how early it shows up, but there's a photo of him very unflattering from right under his chin. Yeah. And it just makes some of his facial features look insanely large. And I felt bad for the guy. You know, people in the D-backs chat last night were making fun of me, pull behind the curtain, because I put Brandon Pfaadt in the thumbnail, and Brandon Pfaadt makes some of the strangest faces of any pitcher you ever see. He's pitching doing this.
Correct.
And I'm like, how am I supposed to make that look cool, Brandon? Can you help me out a little bit? But Desmond Claude is kind of one of those guys a little bit. You know what I mean?
He really is, Kevin. And yeah, he's another guy who, yeah, he makes sense from a stylistic standpoint. I mean, 4.2 assists per game is really, really solid.
Yeah, he's a very underrated passer.
Yeah,
very underrated passer.
I mean, 3.2 the year before. Knows how to score. Scored 31 points this year against Illinois in one of their higher competition games. I think he's a solid basketball player. Has that Sean Miller Xavier connection to Arizona?
Whew.
I don't know, something to factor. I honestly, I know you're talking about his 3-point shooting. I would like to see that improve a little bit.
Yes.
I know you were talking more about his stroke and his form. Only shot 30% last year, so and on about 3 attempts per game. So I think, but he was really good from the free throw line. He was 77% on a lot of attempts per game from the free throw line. So I think that, he's a guy that you can project to maybe have a little bit more in his bag when it comes to that perimeter shooting aspect of things. And yeah, he's a good player overall. Moving on, my number 2 player, and I believe me and Kevin here are we're in lockstep with who the top 2 are, but we just have them flipped a little bit.
Correct.
My number 2 player is Zeke Mayo. We watched Zeke Mayo against Arizona. Let me find you the stats on that game in particular.
Mayonnaise.
Sure. Zeke Mayo he actually kind of struggled for Kansas at times last year. There was that situation, we mentioned it on yesterday's program, where some Kansas fans were unfortunately, sending him some threats and stuff in his DMs because he wasn't playing the greatest of basketball. But he really, really picked it up down the stretch of the season, Kevin, and started hitting some big shots. He
kind of saved them at points.
He definitely did. He went 5 of 7 from 3 against Arizona at Kansas in their senior night W, which was a really cool moment for him too, because I know that he's from Lawrence, that it's his hometown team. I'm sure he grew up a Jayhawks fan, and having the tough season that he did, going off and kind of spurring his team to victory on that senior night. I'm sure that was a really, really cool experience for him. But he's just a really good player. He hit 5 threes that night. He was 5 of 7 from 3 against Arizona. He only took 9 shots in that game, Kevin. Did you know that? He only took 9 shots in that that first Kansas-Arizona game. It felt like he took 40, and it felt like he made every single one of them. He scored 20 points that night, had 6 assists as well. Then he went into the Big 12 tournament, scored 24, hit 5 threes against UCF. Then he played Arizona again in the Big 12 tournament, scored 20 points, hit 5 threes on 12 attempts in that one. I mean, he played his best basketball when the moments were biggest, right? Against Arkansas in the first round, Kevin, in a game where they kind of barely lost. He hit 4 of 5 3-pointers in that game. Zeke Mayo, when the moment was big, he showed up. And I think just from a standpoint of the Arizona needing a shooter, you couldn't find a better player on the market than Zeke Mayo.
I mean, I don't want to elaborate too much because, again, we kind of let the cat out of the bag. That is my number one on my list, so I'll elaborate in a second, but I do back up everything you had to say about that. And yeah, I'll elaborate more on Zeke Mayo momentarily. But I will move on to my number 2 pick, who is Darrion Williams of Texas Tech. Now you might be saying, Kevo, I thought you said Tyon Grant-Foster got docked on your list because that might not be the role he's looking for. Well, what role is Darrion Foster looking for if not a starting role for millions of dollars, right? And I would say very valid, very true, very fair. But I think when you look at a guy like Darrion Williams, the difference between, I think, Tyon Grant-Foster's approach, and this is without me knowing them personally, right?
Yeah.
From the outside looking in, I would assume the difference between their two approaches are Darrion Williams, if he can't go to the NBA, he just came from Texas Tech. I feel like he's going to want to stay competitive on whatever team he goes to. He's going to want to go to a team that can still compete for a Final Four or a national championship because he was that close from doing so last year, right? So I feel like Darrion Williams has more of a win-now mentality than a guy like Tyon Grant-Foster, who's been playing college basketball for the better half of a decade and likely, again, without knowing him, cares a little bit less about being on a team that will win now, especially based on the teams that you said were on his short list or were interested in him. So for that reason, Darrion Williams does not get dropped for, having a bigger name and a bigger NIL request, albeit maybe a little bit unrealistic for me to have him on this list. I think the talent that he is, at the size that he has, is everything that Arizona would need kind of to make that front court somewhat unstoppable. You'd have some developmental bigs, the likes of the international players that we've just brought in. You'd also have Motiejus Krivas, the big, traditional center. You'd have Tobe Awaka, kind of that versatile rebounder. And then you'd have Darrion Williams, who could kind of be like an experienced version of, and a less talented, respectfully, version of like a Koa Peat, right? Who's going to be able to score for you, facilitate a little bit, play good defense. So if you're looking at guys that can take, flat out, if you're looking for guys that can take Arizona's roster from really good to national title favorites in the preseason, Darrion Williams is a name that you're looking at. That's why, I'd be remiss to not mention him on this list, the same way you would have been remiss to not mention RJ Lewis, right? Because I didn't mention RJ Lewis, but neither of us mentioning RJ Lewis would have been crazy. So yeah, Darrion Williams is number 2 on my list of players that Arizona should target in the portal.
We're going to get to who we got at number 1. It's gonna blow your mind.
Whoa!
Given the the last 2 answers that Kevin and I gave, we'll do that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast. But first, Kevin, let's talk about Empire Today. Empire Today is just the best place to get your flooring because it is the cheapest price that you're gonna get for the highest quality product. And we talk about the virtual floor designer all the time. They're gonna show up, give you a free in-home estimate, and not only that, they're gonna go into your studio. Or where, not studio. For us, it's the studio where we got our Empire Today flooring, and they came and installed it and went through this entire process. Absolutely seamless. But in your house, they're going to show up. They're going to take a picture. They're going to show you exactly what that floor looks like with that virtual floor designer before you make that giant purchase, before you spend all that money that you work so hard for on flooring that you hate, right? And that's something that Empire Today just does better than every single other place that you can buy your flooring from. Another thing that they do better, Kevin, you don't got to just lug all that equipment back to your house and find a contractor who's going to, install it for you. Like Empire Today handles all of that process. They make it nice and easy. National company. You can get this done anywhere in the United States. It's not just an Arizona thing. And yeah, of course, you know the deal. We're going to get you $350 off your purchase when you use our promo code of PHNX. Empire Today, they've been supporting us for a long time over here at PHNX Sports and at ALLCITY. And it's the most simple, easiest, and best quality way to get just a massive undertaking of a job done that everybody knows it's so stressful when you make purchases like this. Not with Empire. They're going to make it as easy as possible. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners receive a $350 discount when you use our promo code of PHNX. That's right, guys, $350. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHNX for full details.
And yo, look, it's your boys. It's Kevo and it's Damon from the AZ Wildcats podcast. And I have huge news for you at home from our friends over at Sanderson Ford. They have just announced from America for America pricing. Now you pay the exact same thing as David Kimmerly, the owner of Sanderson Ford, on a full lineup of new Fords with no hassle, no pressure, no nonsense, and no added markups, no addendums, no nothing. And on top of all the employee pricing, you can get additional Ford incentives on over 1,000. Yes, 1,000 vehicles during the Sanderson Ford Platinum 70th Anniversary Sale in celebration of their 70th anniversary. Stop in and get a pair of tickets to an Arizona Diamondbacks game just for stopping by. No test drive required. That could be you, folks. This does exclude 2025 Expedition, Super Duty, Raptor Family, Mustang, and Bronco specialty vehicles. One pair of tickets per household with valid driver's license to July 6th game versus the Kansas City Royals while supplies last of 200 tickets, folks. So check out our friends over at Sanderson Ford.
Check out Sanderson Ford. Kevin, before we get into our number one, did you have any honorable mentions that you wanted to get off your chest and maybe give a quick shout out to before we totally spoil who our both of our number ones are? I'm taking that as a no.
I kind of do, but it kind of would have been I don't know how much he would have played next season, right? So it's like at what cost? You know what I mean? But I do love Adrame Diongue from San Jose State. I think the 7-foot junior at 200 pounds, I think he brings a lot to the table in terms of rim protection, the ability to get up to get back, and overall athleticism. So I do like his game, but I just don't think Arizona necessarily needs him. So I guess Adrame Diongue, honorable mention, but not particularly.
And where did he play at last year?
San Jose State.
Gotcha.
Shout out to Brent Brennan. Yeah, shout out to Brent Brennan.
There's also a guy in Jameer Watkins who neither of us mentioned. He is he went to Florida State last season. He averaged 18 points per game at Florida State last year, so he was a really a player. I believe he has 1 year of eligibility left. Kind of a similar situation. Like, is this a guy that necessarily wants to play this role? Right. Another guy that was interesting to me, but he might be a little bit more of a power forward and more of a big than maybe we're looking for is Van Allen Lubin from UNC.
I just love his name. No, I just love his name. Yeah,
Lubin maybe.
I think it's Lubin. I do think it's Lubin.
He's a little bit more of a power forward. Shot in the high 60% from the field last year and was really good down the stretch for North Carolina. But I didn't put him on this list in particular because he said that he has full intentions of returning to UNC despite entering the transfer portal. There's some weird situation going on in that regard. So, I'm that one. I'm not putting a ton of stock into, I guess, either.
Is he our first college basketball player to enter free agency only to re-sign for a bigger contract?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really understand what his end game is necessarily. But
did he just deny his first player option? Is that what just happened? Did we have our first ever player option denial at the NCAA ranks?
It does feel that way, Kevin. It does feel that way. But yeah, they're just. I mean, there's. I know that I said that there's a little bit more names. There are some other people that are like rated 4-star transfers and whatnot that I think I would take on this team if you told me, especially Carter Bryant wasn't coming back. Like, hey, you can have just a random guy on the roster. Like, yeah, I'm absolutely going to pick a guy who I think, has potential to help this team. Maybe not this year, but even in the future. Right. But in general, there's some high quality players out here. And yeah, I mean, you already talked about him, Kevin. I'll just get into it. My number one on my list was Darrion Williams, not because I think it's realistic, not because I think it's going to happen or that Arizona's even involved, but I just think he's a really, really good basketball player. So I felt like I had to put him number one. That was kind of the theme of my list. Like, do I think, I don't, to be honest with you, I don't think Arizona's getting any of these top 3 players on this list, regarding Darrion Williams, Zeke Mayo, and RJ Lewis that I had on my list, right? But I think Darrion Williams he's either going to go to Kansas or Texas Tech. He's going to make, more money than Arizona could fathom probably paying a player. But he's a 15-point per game scorer. He averaged 5.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He did it in the Big 12 this past season. And, he shot decent from 34%, 45% the year before. He's a really good basketball player. I put him number one on the list because I think he's the best basketball player on the list. And part of that is he did it in the Big 12. He did it in this conference, right?
No, yeah, very valid. You know how I feel about how talented of a player he is specifically, and everything he was able to do for his squad last season. I think that truly elevating an already talented squad is, I think standing out on that squad is hard to do. And I think that he was able to do that very well last season. My number one player, we've kind of already discussed him at length, is Zeke Mayo. Damon Dog. I think Zeke Mayo is the guy. I know. I think Zeke Mayo is the guy, though, that if you are, if you're trying to take this team, like I said, from really good to great, from a top 10 preseason team to a top 3 preseason team, Zeke Mayo is that guy. Mm-hmm. And what did I say earlier, Damon, in relation to what Arizona has to do and to fill the roles from last season, right? Like what is truly missing, Damon Dog? It's that top end score, that high potential score that any night could drop you 25, 30 points.
Yeah.
What did Zeke Mayo do last season? Just exactly that. And I think when you look at his ceiling as a player, his ceiling specifically for Arizona, Damon, I think Zeke Mayo is the kind of guy that you want on this team. He's the kind of guy that could really, because like I said earlier, I'm not looking for players that are going to handle the ball crazily or are going to be able to have all the dribble moves in their bag. I need a guy that can hit spot up threes and raise the level of the offense if they are struggling. And I think Zeke Mayo is the kind of guy that if Arizona's offense is having a slow start to the game, can come in, hit a couple threes, and factory reset the offense. I don't know. I don't think it's really likely that he ends up at Arizona. But of all the players in the portal that I would love to see in an Arizona Wildcat uniform that I think could help this team reach a national title game, I think Zeke Mayo is number one, Damon. Michael here says in the chat, say Bryant comes back. Where does Mayo fit on that team? Or is it only if CB doesn't come back? Honestly, this is, in my opinion, assuming Carter Bryant is not returning because there just wouldn't be enough mouths to feed or wouldn't be enough food for every mouth you have to feed.
In an ideal world, maybe he replaces Anthony Del Orso and Carter Bryant comes back, but that's like video game type stuff.
Now we're trying to be Matt Ishbia. Yeah. And this is assuming that Carter Bryant does not return and you do need to fill out that 3 spot with a high potential scoring guy.
Yeah.
I think Zeke Mayo is the perfect spot for that. That's why he falls number 1 on my list. Like I said, if you're trying to replace the potential production of Caleb Love, Zeke Mayo is the best option right now in the portal to do that without taking away touches from your beautiful freshmen, Brayden Burries, Koa Peat, Dwayne Aristote, and the rest of the recruits coming in next season. And that's our top 5. Should we rattle through them real quick for
do it. Let's do it.
Continuity's sake. All right, from the number 1 to number 5. Number 1 of players Arizona should target on my list, Zeke Mayo. Number 2, Darrion Williams. Number 3, Desmond Claude. Number 4, Liutauras Lelevicius. And then number 5, Tyon Grant-Foster. Those are my 5 players I think Arizona needs to target, if they're going to take their team from really good to great next season.
My top 5, Doc Bradley, Tyon Grant-Foster, RJ Lewis, Zeke Mayo at number 2, and Darrion Williams at number 1. Getting some information here, and hadn't previously seen this, Kevin, that Zeke Mayo is one of those guys that is like he entered the portal, but maybe doesn't have any eligibility left.
No! Say it ain't so. It ain't so, David.
It's just crazy. I don't understand how that works at all. There was the guy at Clemson who did the same thing, and I just saw one rando on Twitter say that they're both like that. But if he could somehow get an extra year of eligibility, I would absolutely love to have Zeke Mayo on this roster. I think he fits really well. I think he brings that scoring aspect that maybe isn't totally a given right now, right, Kevin? Considering like Brayden Burries is a freshman, I think you expect Brayden Burries and Koa Peat to be those guys, the guys who provide that scoring punch. But also you're banking on freshmen doing that, and so having a guy in Zeke Mayo who has 4 years of college experience, played in multiple tournament games, like I think that's the type of player that really could take this roster to the next level or just inspire confidence in Arizona fans. So yeah, Zeke Mayo would be unbelievable. Darrion Williams would be unbelievable. Will Arizona get any of these players? Who knows? Probably not. But we're going to keep you locked and loaded when it comes to all Arizona recruiting updates moving forward, and all Carter Bryant updates as well, because it does feel like at the moment, like Tommy Lloyd, and we've talked about this all the time, is like it feels like Tommy puts his chips puts all his chips in the table. And you know, if Carter Bryant's going to come back, he's going to keep that door open for Carter Bryant if it's still a possibility, right? So there you have it. We are now heading into an overtime period on the AZ Wildcats podcast. It's overtime, and that means we're talking about some other sports now, Kevin. So why don't we go ahead and move on? We'll put basketball to the side for a second. Let's talk about something that's going on right now. Arizona softball. Arizona softball got down yesterday. Kevin, you were locked in on the game.
Could I have been more locked? I was in a hot tub, relaxing, having the time of my life, soaking up all the vitamin D that I possibly could, and just watching the Arizona softball team, and we'll get into the game now, claw back into this game.
Wow.
It was beautiful. It was that's literally
so corny.
No, but it's true. That's literally true. That's how it felt in the moment. You're down 4-0, or you're down
back.
You're down 3-0, and they literally did like scrape and claw their way back to this victory.
Yes, sack fly.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't all just a bunch of like bombs. Being
single escapes between first and second.
Totally, it was a gritty win. It was a gritty win. Kevin, was there anything that I mean, and that ties the season series with UCF? We talked about UCF beat Arizona 2-1. At Hillenbrand, which was a surprising result earlier in this season when they played a series against one another. And now UCF, Arizona ties the season series against them 2-2 by eliminating them in the Big 12 conference tournament. Kevin, was there anything about the game in particular that stood out to you while watching it?
At risk of sounding corny yet again, I think like the fight that the team showed was genuinely because Arizona softball they don't need the Big 12 championship for any seeding purposes. Somewhat similar to the spot Arizona basketball was in going into the Big 12 tournament, where maybe you get one higher, maybe you drop one or two. Like it didn't really. They're kind of locked in at that 11 RPI right now, from what I was understanding from the broadcast. So I felt like this team going down 3-0. Even with Stoddard starting and then Devin Netz, replacing her, I believe, in the second inning. Like, even with that, being down 3-0, continuing to fight, because your first year in the conference, Damon, winning this conference championship, this conference, whatever you want to call it, would be massive, I think, for Arizona softball to make it that kind of a statement that, yes, we are the historic team that you all feared coming into your conference as a softball squad. Devin Netz is incredible. That very clutch go-ahead single that she hit at the end of the game there to put Arizona ahead after somewhat dealing for most of the game. She
came in for Miranda Stoddard, right?
Yeah.
Who was struggling to an extent and kind of just shut things down.
I think Devin Netz, don't quote me on this, but I believe she retired all but one batter, and the one batter was like a solo home run, I believe. So Devin Netz is incredible on both sides of the diamond, and I cannot wait to see Arizona continue in the Big 12 championship, because it feels like they got the monkey of UCF off their back, and now they might be just free running it. Who knows? Excited for where Arizona softball can continue to go.
Arizona currently 12th in RPI, to your point earlier, and there are 16 regional sites, so they should pretty solidly be in a hosting a regional, site. Regional tournament. I don't know exactly what you call it. Usually people just say regionals, I guess. But so they'll be hosting. They won't be they most likely won't be hosting a super regional. That's now next up on the docket. You got later today. I believe it is the second game today. I believe ASU versus Texas Tech is the first game tonight, and then Arizona plays Iowa State, who beat BYU 4-2 yesterday, and they played. That was the latest game yesterday. This is a little write-up here from On3 that I wrote down here, Kevin. So BYU took a 1-0 lead in the first inning. Then Iowa State scored 4 unanswered runs, including a 2-on a home run from McKenna Andrews in the fourth. And then Jaden Ralston spun a gem in the circle as she threw a complete game and kept the Cougars' bats at bay. Arizona did not play Iowa State earlier this season. There was no previous matchup. One interesting thing I thought about Iowa State when I was digging into their schedule and trying to do some quick research on them, they also didn't play Texas Tech. So Iowa State somehow got their schedule made up where they didn't have to play Arizona or Texas Tech throughout the entirety of their Big 12 regular season. They did play ASU, who was the next best team. They beat them 2-1 in the series. That was at home, I believe. and some close games in there. So I think that they're a fairly similar caliber team to ASU, to be honest with you. And Arizona handled ASU this year. So I think that Arizona should win this game. I think if Arizona has aspirations to do big things in the NCAA tournament, that this is a game that you do win. Iowa State, they have a good record. They also haven't faced that top-level competition like Arizona maybe has. Arizona goes into extras with, at the time, number 1 Texas, right? I don't know if they're still number 1. Gotta look that up real quick.
I took a poor second to drink some water. That was a bad, poorly timed water drink.
Texas is number 8 now, so they're not quite as good as maybe everyone thought they were going to be going into the season. But I also think that there's more parity in college softball this year. It's not just like Oklahoma is just going to go out there and 100% win it all. So yeah, Arizona should, I think, beat Iowa State. I think they should handle business today. And another ISU score, they lost 3-24 to Florida this year. Florida is number 2 in the rankings.
Jeez.
They're a really good team. Arizona competed with the teams that they played against that were in that range. They lost 3-24. 24 runs.
That's a lot of runs.
I think, this is a game Arizona needs to win if they're serious, in my opinion.
I know, I agree with you, Damon. I think Arizona actually stands a really good chance to bring home a softball Big 12 championship, right? Like, I feel like they're putting themselves in a good position to actually go out and win the whole damn thing and bring another piece of hardware back to Tucson. And that makes me very excited to watch the rest of this tournament, Damon. We also have more going on in the Diamond Sports.
Real quick, I did want to answer Nick's question real quick. They play at 3:30 today. So coming up pretty soon here.
Yeah, so after our show, go grab some lunch and then sit down and watch some Cats softball.
Maybe pop in the hot tub like my guy Kevin.
Exactly. Enjoy the sun before it gets way too hot to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, maybe the hot tub's not a good idea today.
Yeah, yesterday was a great idea.
It's like 100 degrees outside.
Yesterday it was a lot more temperate, a lot more beautiful outside. Today it is hot. But yeah, like I was saying, there's a lot more going on around the Diamond. Arizona baseball plays Utah in a weekend series Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 6 p.m. First pitch for Friday and Saturday. 12 p.m. for Sunday, a little nooner there. Arizona will honor 7 seniors this weekend versus Utah in the final home series of the reg season. Raul Garazar, Matthew Martinez. I know I butchered that first one. We're going to roll right past it. Julian Tonghini, Richie Morales. Those are 4 players that did not start at Arizona as a high school recruit, but transferred in. They will be getting honored. Garen Caulfield, Eric Orloff, and Tommy Spillane are all 4 players that signed with Arizona out of high school, and they will also be honored on senior weekend. Like I said, the last 3 were players that signed as a part of that 2021 recruiting class. Some of the very few players to remain on Arizona roster after Jay Johnson left for LSU. So yeah, Utah, this is a chance for Arizona baseball to kind of build momentum again. We keep saying this. They keep losing to GCU. But Utah is not a very good squad. They have not been very good in the Big 12. Arizona's offense has been struggling as of late. You hope Brendan Summerhill can stay healthy for the remainder of this season, and that can kind of help to kickstart your offense as you get into the end of the regular season and into the postseason, Damon.
Certainly the case. One weird thing, I know you say like Utah not very good at baseball, which is very true. Colorado doesn't even have a baseball team, which I find extremely odd. Like not having a baseball team when you're a major university. I think it's just one of those sports that I feel like you have to have.
I think the Rockies might have just infected. Like maybe just no one cares. Maybe they made everybody in Colorado.
The Rockies are so ass
that everyone's just apathetic towards the idea of bat and ball. You know what I mean? They just don't want to see it. They don't care.
I'm just envisioning like a Boulder, Colorado backdrop of a mountain.
Ooh, it'd be beautiful.
It would be one of the most scenic baseball stadiums you probably in the country, but. I do have an answer regarding our friend Raul here. So why don't we give him the chance?
Chat, what's that name?
Raul Garaysar.
You did all right.
Garaysar. Okay.
You did all right.
I did okay.
It's pretty phonetic.
Yeah. I'll give myself a C if I'm going to grade my C+.
I'm going to give you a B-. I'm going to give you a B-. I mean, because here's why, Kevin, because I really think the only thing that you were missing was kind of the accent on it.
The rolling of the R.
Yeah.
The Garaysar.
The little bit of spice on it, right? And I don't expect you to give me that. You're from St. Louis, Missouri, brother. I don't expect Kevin to show up and start rolling the R's and giving me all these great Spanish pronunciations of things. So I'm going to give you a B-. I think we grade on a curve.
We'll grade it on a curve. Also, Nick, no, that was not Shane. Shane is in Europe. Don't know where. Don't know what he's doing. Probably enjoying his life. But he is not here.
Probably thrilled he's not with us for the last week.
Yeah, probably just living it up, having a great time. Could not be happier, though, for Shane. I had never been to Europe. I would love to go one day. But, Damon, I do have one last news and note for us before we get on up out of here.
Let's do it.
And it is Tetairoa McMillan. The man that just keeps on giving good quotes. Not really, but he's actually quite quiet and soft-spoken. But he did speak up about Larry Fitzgerald recently when he was asked who he looks up to as a receiver and who his comps are. And we kind of know his affinity, his admiration, I should say, for Larry Fitzgerald as a receiver and as a professional. And Larry Fitz had this to say when he found out about that. We have a tweet from Sheena Quick that says, McMillan says his favorite football player ever is Larry Fitzgerald and feels his comps are Mike Evans and Keenan Allen. Hashtag Panthers. Larry Fitzgerald says, honored.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Good job. And then when T-Mac found out about this is what T-Mac had to say about Larry Fitzgerald being honored for being his favorite player.
I'm all for it.
I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but Larry Fitzgerald said that he was honored that you named him amongst your favorite football players.
No, I saw that. Me and Larry, I've talked to him a few times. We have a good relationship, and I'm sure throughout this whole process and throughout my time in the league, he's gonna be the guy that I can call for anything. A guy that I can lean on just for some wisdom, some knowledge. So, Larry, if you're watching this, expect a phone call.
Thank you, team.
Man, that's aura. I'm not even joking. I know that word gets overused, but like legitimately. And I cannot believe real life people tried to convince us that this man wasn't the best receiver in his draft class. Kevin, what are we talking about? I mean, it wasn't even close. The Cowboys ended up taking a guard who's one of the least athletic players ever selected in the first round in modern football history because they were locked in on picking T-Mac at number 12. And he didn't even come close to making it there because he went number 8. How dare you put Matthew Golden in the same context as Tetairoa McMillan? How dare you put Emeka Egbuka, who's been a number 2 receiver his entire life, in the same sentence as Tetairoa McMillan? He is a star, and even Larry goddamn Fitzgerald knows it.
Take a breath.
Woo!
Whew. That was a lot. I echo everything you said. I love that you just did that. That was wonderful. And I'm going to let that breathe for a second.
It's just like, how could you have Larry Fitzgerald being like, oh, I'm honored that this guy is my favorite player because he's so good at football. Also, T-Mac, here's my number. Feel free to call me anytime. I'd love to be that resource for you. We got to, it's like, and then meanwhile, you have Steve Smith being like,
he's a big jump ball guy, at least.
I just don't know if he can run routes. You already got Hunter Renfrow on the team.
You already got Adam Thielen.
Yeah, you got Adam Thielen. You got Hunter Renfrow. You got Xavier Legette. Why would you need T-Mac? I don't know, because he plays nothing like any of the 3 receivers that you just named for me.
And he's more talented than all of them.
Correct.
But yeah, no, Damon, I thought that was great to hear that some Valley legends or some Arizona legends are, staying connected after all these times. And it was also really cool to kind of see T-Mac just kind of shoot his shot right there. Be like, hey, yo, Larry, just so you know, I'm going to call you. I'm going to get that number. We're going to chop it up. You're going to tell me how to become a Hall of Famer because that's what my goals are. Jay in the chat, calling back to our rankings conversation, saying, low-key, Tyon Grant-Foster on U of A would be kind of sick. I think we both agree with you. It'd be a really cool fit, keeping him in the state. Another one of the players that I can kind of just imagine as an Arizona Wildcat. But yeah, T-Mac, like I said, very cool to see that he has his head on straight, like we knew the whole time. And maybe, just maybe, him showing admiration for one of the most prolific, quiet guys of all time should tell you a little something about his love for the game that people tried so hard to diminish throughout the draft process. And I think we should lead the people with that.
Yeah, I don't really like to watch film. That means he hates football. No, it means he doesn't really like to watch film, but he does it anyways because he's literally saying he doesn't enjoy it.
Damon, I think that you and I I'm not comparing us to high-level athletes, but I think at like a foundational level, a job is a job, right?
Yes.
And I think you and I both love our jobs.
Yes.
We feel incredibly lucky and fortunate to be able to do these things that we do every day.
Certainly.
And I think if you are someone in the chat, first of all, leave a like. And if you are someone in the chat that, loves their job, I think you can relate to this. No matter how much you love your job, there are going to be small, maybe large aspects of your job that aren't your favorite. But overall, your job is a part of the reason why you get up every morning and you just love it so much. I think that could be the case for T-Mac, right? He could love working out 24/7. He could love, practicing, like whatever, all the other stuff that makes you a great wide receiver is, T-Mac could love it. And maybe he just loves watching film the least. You know what I mean?
Literally.
I think that might just be the case.
Also, like when he's a freshman saying that, how does that have any way, shape, or form? When he still has to, and I know it's like they make easy schedules for these guys and whatnot, but he still has classes and stuff that he has to go to. Now his full life is football, and everything that he has to do for his family, for his career, is all invested in football. I guarantee you he's watching film. It was just the most egregious character assassination attempt I've ever seen in my entire life from a guy that you literally can't find one person that will say a bad word about him that's met him.
So you're telling me that a freshman in college, a guy that was pretty much a high schooler just months before that, didn't want to do homework?
Correct. And also,
that blows my mind.
And also a guy that, was already like the best player on the team from the moment he stepped on campus. It's like, okay, like it wasn't really hurting the situation, but regardless, we'll continue to defend our guy T-Mac, but glad to see in our corner, on our side, Larry Fitzgerald.
Bang.
Oh, does that do anything for you? Only one of the 5 greatest receivers in NFL history.
Could have been maybe the greatest if he had respectfully been drafted to a better franchise. That maybe neither here nor there.
Jerry Rice is pretty unbeatable.
No, yeah, you're right. No, you're right. But we'll never know, and that's why I love hypotheticals, because I can't be wrong in hypothetical worlds.
Facts.
Anyway, shout out to AZ Cats G. We love you, my guy. Shout out to you. Overtime buzzer beater. You guys are high level. You are even higher level, AZ Cats G. We appreciate you for your $2 super chat. And we look forward to the next one because unless you got more for us today, Damon, I think that is going to call it here. Nick Arenas wants to know, are you guys going to grab a Panthers jersey? It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. Because yes, the answer to this question is yes. Me and Damon will probably both be owners of some McMillan Panthers jerseys sometime down the line.
I also want to say shout out to my guy Travis in here who says go Clones. Travis is a guy that I've become friendly with on Twitter. And I'm sure he's hopping in because of the Iowa State. Yeah.
Friendly with someone on Twitter?
Correct. I'm not all that.
Folks,
not all bad.
Anything is possible!
I do make friends from time to time, but way more enemies. Certainly way more enemies. But Travis, good dude. And we're going to take it to you later tonight, buddy. But we'll keep you locked in on all the softball news. Arizona basketball, Arizona baseball, Arizona football. You know where to follow. It's the AZ Wildcats podcast. PHNX_Wildcats on Twitter. He is Kevo Post. You can follow him at KEVOPOSTS. You can follow me at Damon Dog. It's DAWG on the end of that guy. And as I said, PHNX_Wildcats is going to be that show account. Please give us a follow if you haven't done so already. Like this video. It's right there on the screen. You got the cactus logo pointing straight at you, telling you to like the video. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, road to 50K. We will be back on a Monday. Actually, we will not be back. We?
Mr. Vacations. Well, Justin Spears and I will likely be back on a Monday. Me and someone else will likely be back on a Tuesday. And who knows about Wednesday.
Kevin will have you covered with all of your Arizona athletics news next week. I will be in lovely Southern California soaking in the sun.
Recruiting Desmond Claude?
Maybe so. You never know. We're recruiting Doc Bradley.
Ooh.
Who knows? You'll just have to find out on Monday at noon. We're the AZ Wildcats podcast. Be there. I am Damon. He's Kevin. Peace out. Bear down. Go Cats.
And don't forget to drink water.
We all silly like the mayor.